All right, welcome back. We're here with the second episode of our ImprovED podcast, and I'm really excited about today's guest. Today I have Amanda Coffey, and she's a kindergarten teacher in Dodge City, Kansas, and she's been teaching for 15 years?
Yep, 15 years.
15 years. And so I'm really excited to have her on the show. And Amanda, where I like to start off with guests is just allowing you to talk about like what kind of brought you into education and what's your education journey been like so far?
Okay. When I went to college, I actually didn't plan on becoming a teacher. That was the last thing that I wanted to do. Honestly, I wanted to be a storm chaser. And then I just kind of decided education was where I wanted to go. I don't know, I've taught 2 years in 6th grade. I taught 1 year in 4th grade, and then the rest of my time has been in kindergarten, so.
Very good. Storm chasing, like what draws you to storm chasing? What excites you about storm chasing?
It's scary, like you,
Kind
a
of like
tornado might take you away, so that's kind of scary. And
It's
that's
kind of like
cool.
teaching kindergarten.
It is like teaching kindergarten. There's 25 little tornadoes every day.
You never know what's going to happen.
That's right. That is true.
That's excellent. So what about, who's someone who inspired you growing up? Who's someone that you looked up to or that got you excited, inspired you?
I don't know. I guess people would always say your parents. My parents inspired me. They worked really hard, and neither of my parents went to college, so it was important for me to be able to do that and then be able to make sure that my kids have the chance to do that. And so they worked really hard all day long, all night long. I don't know, I guess that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I don't really have any teachers who inspired me. I don't have any of that. So.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
As some people get into education because they had great educators who inspired them.
Or teachers in their families.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then some people get into education almost for the opposite
Yep.
reason, because they didn't have any
Yeah.
teachers who inspired them.
Which I guess would be me. Sorry to all my former teachers, but
Maybe they're not watching.
hopefully.
Well, very good. Another thing I was curious about you is like, what topics in education are you interested in or passionate about right now? Like, what gets you excited about education right now?
I really like to talk a lot about play-based learning, giving kids more playtime, playing in the classroom, learning by playing, having more recess time. I'm really big about bringing back more time to work on social skills and just being a human being, and spending less time on the academic part. I'm also interested in classroom management. I like to talk to teachers about what they do in their classroom, how they work with their kids, how do they manage behavior, rules, things like that.
So, can you talk to me, in your experience with some play-based learning, like what kind of benefits have you seen from giving kids a chance to play and experience that type of environment rather than always just traditional classroom environment?
Well, I think that kids who spend more time playing, they are able to focus better in the classroom. I think they learn a lot better. Kids who are allowed to play work on those social skills. They work on being together, they fight all the time, but they learn how to solve their problems or how not to solve their problems and go play with someone else. They're just learning a lot of social skills that our kids are not coming to school with anymore.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing, because I think when we were growing up, we spent a lot of time outside and playing with friends and time away from parents, playing with friends, and I'm not sure that kids get as much of that experience now, and so they don't have some of those coping skills or social emotional cues and some of those kinds of things, because either they're not playing outside at all or interacting with other kids at all, or when they are, there's parents hovering over,
Yeah,
kind
and
of
not,
solving problems.
they're not allowing them to be independent, and so these kids are coming to school and they can't put on their own jackets, and they can't tie their shoes, and they can't hold a pencil or hold a pair of scissors. And so it's hard when you have these 5-year-olds and there's a lot of them, and you have to teach them all of these skills because they're so dependent on their parents.
That's interesting. Another thing is, I just recently talked with our Commissioner of Education in Kansas, and he was talking about how, again, when we were growing up, school was a place where we came to get knowledge, to get content knowledge.
Yeah.
And we were rich in experiences. We went to church, we played outside, we played baseball, we did all those things. We were in Cub Scouts, we were in Girl Scouts. We had a lot of experiences, but we had to go to school to get the content. And in today's world, it's almost the opposite. Just because of the internet and cell phones, and kids are having lots of access to content. They can access content anytime and for free, but they're poor in experiences nowadays. And so allowing some of those kids to have experience, I think, is an important thing. So I'm happy that you're talking about play-based learning. I think that's really cool. The other thing you were talking about was kind of classroom management. Can you talk to me a little bit about your philosophy or what your experience is with classroom management?
Oh boy. When I started teaching, I was very much into rules. Rules equal consequences, which included trips to the office, parents being called all the time. And that was the only time I ever called parents. I've gone through the whole clip chart phase. I've done, if you name it, I've probably used it. Now my philosophy has changed to where I'm less about the rules. Like, we don't have a lot of rules in my classroom. We keep each other safe, we're nice to each other, and we're responsible. Like, we keep track of our stuff, we take care of things. But as far as like, no, you can't sit here, no, you can't do that, I try to stay away from that because they need to learn. Like you were talking about the experiences. They need to learn. They need to know what's going to happen if they try to hold the paper wrong and cut with their scissors. Like, I'm not going to allow them to harm themselves, but they need experiences and they need to learn stuff. I don't do clip charts. I don't do rewards. I don't do sticker charts. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. My philosophy of teaching and discipline is, here's what we do, and if you make a mistake, then we talk about it, we solve it, we try again. Like, they're kids, they make mistakes. We can't expect these kids never to screw up. We can't expect these kids never to make a mistake. So when they do, a lot of times you see teachers, and I was one of them for a very long time, and I'm not saying everybody's one of them, but you yell at the kids or go to the office, I'm going to call your parents. Yeah. And I just feel like the more you hound on them like that, the bigger the problem it's going to be.
Yeah.
More rules equals more chaos in my mind, which I know is weird, but I feel like that's how I run my classroom.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting, and I think a lot of teachers are perhaps afraid to go towards something like that. So what advice would you give a teacher who's they've tried the clip chart, they've tried writing students' names in the doghouse on the board, they've tried these different classroom
doghouse, yes,
management,
I remember that.
they've tried these different strategies and it's not seeming to work, but they're kind of afraid to try kind of this philosophy that you have. What advice would you give a teacher who is looking at?
You don't know if it's going to work until you try it. If you can try a doghouse and it doesn't work, and you can try a clip chart and it doesn't work, then try this and see if it works. I mean, you just don't know until you try.
Yeah.
And also, like, keep in constant contact with the parents, the good and the bad. I try to make sure, I can't talk to every parent every single day, but I do try to make sure that I talk to several parents once a day, and I always try to get different parents the next day, just to stay in contact with them, even if I have to call them on the phone, just to say, hey, your kid had a great day. She was being really helpful and she helped wipe away another kid's tears. Or, hey, your kid's been doing great, but we kind of had some problems today, so we're working on it, but please talk with them at home. And I find that parents are a lot more responsive when they hear more of the good, then they're more able to take care of the bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great tip. The other thing that I have a question about is, what methods do you use to contact parents? I'm sure that face-to-face is great if they're coming and dropping off kids or picking up kids.
Yep.
And you mentioned phone calls. Are there any apps or any other ways that you like to communicate with parents?
Well, I do have some parents that I'm friends with on Facebook, so we'll Facebook message each other. I use the Blooms app in my classroom. This is not a plug for Blooms. I'm not getting paid for this. But it's great because you can put all the parents' phone numbers in there, and then whether they sign up for it or not, you can still put all their phone numbers in there, and it'll send them the messages that you put out on the app. So I update it every week, and I try to put in things about parent-teacher conferences or meetings or pictures, and then you can also chat one-on-one with certain parents if you can't get a hold of them by phone or they don't come to pick up their kids because they ride the bus. So the Blooms app is a really great app for my classroom.
Super valuable. That's awesome. What about teachers who are looking at learning more about kind of your style of classroom management? Are there any books or anything that you would recommend, or books that you've read that kind of have led you towards that style?
I like
or blogs,
books,
like books or blogs.
I like books about mindset. So like Carol Dweck has a great book about mindset. Again, not a paid thing. There's a couple of books that about mindset coaching and teaching that I've started reading. So I really like the books about mindset and like kind of how you talk to kids and how you interact with kids to help them be more positive and just be more like, I can do this.
Excellent. Well, one thing that I've noticed about you as a teacher and as I've seen your experience over the years is that you never stop learning. I think that's an important thing about you is that you are constantly looking for ways to develop and improve your practice. And so we kind of talked about the classroom management side, but are there any other books or blogs that you read or that you would recommend for teachers looking to improve their practice and just improve their teaching?
I really like the book called Purposeful Play. It's a book about play in the classroom and how you can tie it into your standards and your curriculum. I have been reading a lot of books about Montessori schools lately because I really like the way they're designed, and I would really love to do more with a Montessori approach. I also, blog-wise, I like to follow Kindergarten Smorgasbord. Greg Smedley, he's a male kindergarten teacher. He's pretty cool. He rocks the cool outfits, and he has a trampoline in his room, which I really love.
Whoa.
So, I mean, he's got a lot of really cool stuff. So,
excellent. And is there anything else that you want to talk about, or that you want to share with other teachers?
No, I mean, like I said, you got to try stuff, and I am not an expert in anything, and I will never, ever, ever tell anybody how to run their classroom. You, at the end of the day, have to do what's best for you and your kids in your classroom. Whatever is going to keep you happy, whatever is going to keep your kids happy. So if that means you give them stickers every day, then give them stickers every day. If that means you use a clip chart, use a clip chart. I'm not going to tell you how to run your classroom. That's up to you to use. But make sure you are consistent about it and just love your kids.
Awesome. That's a good piece of advice to kind of end with. One last question. What impact do you hope to leave with the world?
With the world?
With the world. So, you've been living this great life and doing this job which you're super passionate about, and when it's all said and done, what impact do you hope to have had on the world?
I don't know. That's a tough question. I guess I just at the end of the day, I want people to always be able to say at some point in my life and of them knowing me, I was kind to them and I was positive, and I guess that's it.
That's a pretty big impact. That's awesome. Yeah. That's great. Okay, if our viewers want to get in touch with you, if they want to reach out to you, what ways can they find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm also on Snapchat. You can email me. Do I need to give you my email address?
What's your Twitter handle?
I don't know my Twitter handle.
Okay. We can include some of those links in our video if you're interested in reaching out to Amanda. If you want to reach out to me on Twitter, you can always reach me at JustinBCoffey, and you can always follow the hashtag ImprovED to follow more about our podcast. So Amanda, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure, and I really think the work that you're doing in the classroom is great, and so I appreciate you sharing that with our teachers.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.